Have you ever been on one of those software projects, you know the kind, where it's just pure chaos? Missed deadlines, bugs popping up out of nowhere, and that feeling that you're just flying blind? Well, the good news is there's a path from that chaos to real control. And in this explainer, we're going to break down the professional's toolkit for managing software testing.
Yeah, this quote really nails it, doesn't it? Moving from chaos to control isn't some kind of magic trick. It's about applying proven professional disciplines that make quality predictable and, most importantly, achievable. Think of this explainer as your guide to that exact toolkit. Okay, so we're going to break this down into 5 key areas. We'll kick things off by creating a master plan. Then we'll get into how to estimate and prioritize all the work. After that, we'll look at how to structure our tests smartly, how to handle risk, and finally, how to keep the whole thing on track with monitoring and control. All right, first up, creating the master plan. You really have to think of this as the blueprint for your entire testing effort. I mean, without it, you're just putting out fires. But with a solid plan, you're in command.
So what is a test plan really? At its heart, it's a communication tool. That's its most important job. It lays out the goals, the resources you'll need, and the processes you're going to follow. It gets everyone, from the devs to the business folks, totally on the same page about what testing is supposed to do and how we're going to get it done. Now, any good plan needs clear boundaries. Think of them as the rules of the game. Entry criteria are the things that have to be true before you can even start testing, like, is the test environment actually up and running? On the flip side, exit criteria are your finish line. They're the conditions you have to meet to say, okay, we're officially done here.
Okay, so you've got a plan, but how long is all this going to take? And where on earth do you start? That brings us to our second big area, estimation and prioritization. This is all about making smart, strategic calls with your limited time and resources.
You know, one of the first questions anyone asks is, how long is this going to take? And there are a few solid ways to answer that. You can look at historical data, maybe extrapolate from your last few sprints, or you can use expert-based methods like wideband Delphi or a 3-point estimation. The real trick is knowing which tool to use for your specific situation.
A perfect example of that wideband Delphi technique is something you've probably seen in agile teams. It's called planning poker. The whole team gives their estimates privately. Then you talk about any big differences, and you vote again until everyone kind of lands on a consensus. It's a really cool collaborative way to get a much more realistic number.
Another super powerful tool is 3-point estimation. So instead of just one wild guess, you give 3. What's the best case scenario, the worst case, and what's most likely to happen? Now look at the formula. It gives extra weight to that most likely number, which is what makes the final estimate so much more realistic and risk-adjusted. In our example here, it all balances out to a pretty solid 4 days.
Let's be real. You never have enough time to test everything equally. So how do you decide what to test first? This is where prioritization becomes absolutely critical. You can focus on the biggest risks, maybe tackle the areas that give you the most test coverage right away, or simply go by what the stakeholders say is most important. The whole point is to put your effort where it'll have the biggest impact.
Okay, we've got a plan and our priorities are set. So now what? How should you actually structure the tests themselves? Well, using some established mental models here can bring a ton of clarity and efficiency to the whole process.
The test pyramid is a classic for a reason. It's such a great visual reminder to build a really strong foundation of fast, cheap unit tests at the bottom. As you move up the pyramid, the tests get slower, more complicated, and way more expensive. A healthy project has a really wide base, not some wobbly, top-heavy ice cream cone shape.
The Agile Testing Quadrants model is another fantastic tool. It really helps teams think about testing from different angles. You know, are our tests supporting the team and guiding development? Or are they critiquing the product to find flaws? Are they focused on the technology, or are they focused on the business value? Using this ensures you're not accidentally ignoring a whole category of quality checks. All right, now for a topic that can feel a bit negative, but it's honestly one of the most professional things a team can do: managing risk. This isn't about being a pessimist. It's about proactively turning potential disasters into challenges you're actually prepared for.
And it all boils down to this simple but incredibly powerful formula. Risk level equals likelihood times impact. What this means is, risk isn't just about how bad it would be if it happened, it's also about the odds of it happening in the first place. You know, a small problem that happens all the time can sometimes be a much bigger risk than some huge catastrophe it's almost impossible. A risk matrix is how you bring that formula to life. It lets you visually plot how likely something is against how bad its impact would be. This simple grid immediately shows the team which risks are in those red and orange zones. Those are the ones that need your attention and a solid mitigation plan right now.
It's also really important to know the difference between two types of risk. Project risks are things that threaten your schedule or your budget, like a key person quitting. Product risks, on the other hand, are threats to the quality of the thing you're building, like a nasty security flaw. A good plan has to deal with both.
So, with a great plan in place and all your risks identified, how do you keep everything from going off the rails? Well, that brings us to our final section, monitoring and control. These are the daily and weekly disciplines that keep the project on track.
It's that old saying, right? You can't control, but you don't measure. And that's where metrics come in. To get the full picture, teams usually track progress against the plan, the quality of the product, defect counts, how much test coverage they have, and of course, the costs. Reporting is how you communicate those metrics, and there are really two main kinds. The progress report is like the regular heartbeat of the project, a weekly update that tells everyone where things stand. The completion report is the big summary at the end of a phase, capturing the overall quality and, just as importantly, the lessons we learned along the way.
Now, running in the background of all this is a critical process called configuration management, and honestly, it's the unsung hero of a well-controlled project. It's like the project's librarian. It identifies and versions everything, test plans, scripts, even the software itself, so you always know exactly what was tested and you can reliably reproduce your results. It's what prevents total chaos.
And of course, when you do find issues, you need a clear process for handling them. A good defect workflow is actually pretty simple. A defect gets logged with all the details, it's analyzed for its impact, a decision gets made on how to resolve it, and finally, the fix is verified and the ticket gets closed. Clean and simple.
So why go through all this trouble? Well, a formal process isn't just about getting bugs fixed. It makes sure developers have clear, actionable information. It gives management a real way to track the quality of the product over time. And every single defect report is a potential lesson for how we can improve the entire process next time.
So there you have it, the toolkit to move from chaos to control. We've talked about plans, estimates, models, and metrics. But the real question now is for you. As you look at this toolkit, which one of these disciplines do you think could bring the most order and clarity to your next project?